You are listening to Radio Maria Canada, a Catholic voice wherever you are. We now present the program Via Ruah, hosted by Anna Rivera.
Hi everyone, welcome back to In Via Ruah program. Today we have a lovely guest, Colleen Stewart. She is from Hamilton. And just remember from our show, where we learn about God's breath being a tender secret that created and upholds all life from conception to natural death. So I met Colleen just, I want to say less than 3 months ago. And it's been a delight just knowing her. She's definitely a truth seeker and somebody that has definitely been very courageous just from the little time that I've known her. So hi Colleen, how are you today?
Hi Anna, I'm good. Nice to see you. Thanks for inviting me to talk to you today.
No problem. And just to get to know you a bit better, we would like to hear how your upbringing was and how that has inspired you to be the Catholic you are today.
So, and I'm not even a fully initiated Catholic yet. So I'm, God willing, that will happen for me. And but I am deeply connected to the Catholic Church and devoted to it. So, but it's been a bit of a journey that brought me here. So I am just back at church generally and with Christ in the last 2.5 years, and devoted to the Catholic Church for the last, I'd say almost a year, not even a full year yet. So up until then, I was sort of like, I was going to a big evangelical church and going to Catholic Mass, kind of, trying them both out. And
Did you grow up Christian generally then?
yeah, so yeah, I was baptized and my parents are Christian, but they weren't really practicing when we were little. So for a little short while, we went to a Baptist church for a while. And then when it came time for me to go to high school, my mom she would have loved to have been able to afford private schools, but she couldn't. And for her, the next best thing were Catholics. So this was in Ottawa at the time, and she kind of lied and said that we were baptized Catholic, and sent us off to Catholic schools to be taught by the priests, because at that time when I went to high school, it was still the priests who taught you. We went to Mass every morning. But I will say, like, that time in high school, I kind of felt like a bit of an outsider. I never understood, well, I didn't understand the Mass really. School, I mean, we had religion class, but school was very much focused on math and science and English and history and all the other things that you do in school. So I never really had that immersion into the faith, and I didn't understand a lot of it. By the time I finished high school and went off to university, I was a bit disconnected. I hadn't had a profound conversion in high school, and so went off to university, took a women's studies class. That was the beginning of my, as my dad says today, he said, "Oh, Colleen, he just said you were such a royal pain because you were such a radical feminist coming out of university." I mean, he couldn't talk to me about anything. I would just talk about the patriarchy. So, mhm.
You arrived at university. What were your studies? Like what were you degree
Oh,
wise?
I was doing a journalism degree at Carleton, and I was really pumped about being in the journalism program. It was a great program at that time. And but the university environment, even back then. So this would have been like 1989 that I went into school. It was pretty left leaning and very secular. I mean, if there was a religious element on campus, I was completely oblivious to it. I wasn't aware of it at all. But yeah, I think that women's studies course in particular, I remember I took it in the summer, and it really sort of changed the way I thought. Well, I don't know if it changed the way I thought, or it took hold of my my thoughts really didn't have a lot of structure up until then, because we hadn't been going to church. It's not like I had this foundation. My parents had split up and divorced. And so I was a little fluid. And so when I went into this women's studies course, it was like, oh, okay, well, here's an explanation for everything that's going on. It's all basically because of, men. And so I can just lay the blame there, and that's going to work. So, yeah, and after university, I took off and did some traveling with my ex-husband, because I'm divorced and now remarried, but took off with my ex-husband traveling and just saw the world. And that was an amazing experience. I spent 3 years doing that. And then I did bump into religion, mostly the Muslim religion, because we were traveling a lot through the Middle East. And so, but it didn't, yeah, I think all through that time, when I had my children, I was married. I was married to, it's kind of getting into a long story, but my ex-husband was a Christian, but again, not really practicing. So we went to church for a short time, but then we stopped and we never started again. And eventually that marriage ended after 16 years. But it wasn't until about 3 years ago. It's funny. This is my conversion story. So about 3 years ago, on LinkedIn, somebody I follow and quite like and connect with, he had mentioned the show The Chosen.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, he messaged me directly. Like, he put this post up about The Chosen, but then in the comments he put, @Colleen Stewart, I think you would really enjoy this show. And I was thinking, this guy doesn't even know me. Like, we're just connected on LinkedIn, and we kind of like, we're both sort of conservative thinkers. But so I was sort of like, how do you know I would like The Chosen? Like, so I just sort of ignored it. But that week, my very dear friend in Burlington, Catherine, she said to me, have you watched The Chosen yet? It's amazing. So I thought, oh, well, that's interesting, like twice in 1 week. And this is a really good friend of mine, so I guess I'll watch The Chosen. And I fired up the first episode. I was sitting alone in my house. Yeah, go ahead, Anna. Sorry, I could talk for an hour.
No worries. No. So this was during COVID in a way. 2021 or just ending?
Yeah, it was just coming at the end, like, so 2022, maybe. So it wasn't quite, like, it was 2.5 years ago, so it still would have been 2022. And so I fired up the first episode in my room alone one night, and I bawled my eyes out. And so I cry during movies, I do, but this was a different type of crying. This felt like somebody had reached down into the gut of who I am, and was trying to yank something out of me. And I couldn't stop crying. And I became completely enamored with the show. I was watching it every night. I was crying. Eventually I figured out I need a box of Kleenex next to me when I watched The Chosen. Shortly after that, my husband, now fiance at the time, we went up to North Bay to help clear out his mother's house. She was moving into a smaller apartment, and she had left a little pile of stuff for Brock to go through and decide if he wanted to take. And one of the things was a Bible. And he he didn't really want it. And I said, well, what will happen with the Bible if you don't take it? And he said, I don't know, like maybe it'll go in the garbage or something. And I thought, no, no, no. I said, can I have the Bible? So now I was watching The Chosen and then saying to myself, did he really say that? And then I would open the Bible and read in the Gospels, and it just like it's like all the pieces started coming together. Then my parents moved down from Ottawa, and I had kept seeing and hearing of this church, Hope Bible Church. And when mom and dad moved down, they said, we want to go back to church again. And I said, well, I think I know where we're meant to go. And so we started going to Hope Bible Church. And it was, I do give them some credit for keeping me in, like evangelicals, it's like a Christian rock concert and a 40-minute sermon. That's what you get when you go there. And so
Yeah.
that worked for a little while, but I was also curious. I don't even know what prompted me to look up the Catholic Church in my neighborhood, because really I was going to Hope and it was fine. I don't know what prompted me to do it, but one day I Googled Catholic Church, my neighborhood. It didn't send me to the one in my neighborhood. It sent me to one 10 minutes down the road. And the priest there was so lovely, and it was smaller. The choir was a little bit more wobbly. It wasn't like a big Christian rock concert, but there was just something beautiful about it. And I have always been, I'm a writer. I love beauty. I love being in beautiful spaces,
In
and
awe.
I'm literally moved by it. I used to, when I was a kid, my parents had this collection of classical music albums, Beethoven, Mozart, Tchaikovsky, Handel, Brahms, Chopin, and I would just play the records over, and I remember, like,
Do you have a favorite that you would
oh,
say?
Beethoven, probably Beethoven, but Bach as well, because and so yeah, anyway, there's just so much
Yeah.
to say
I
about
just
about Johann Sebastian Bach, right? Like everything he wrote was a gift to God, like was his gift to God. And anyway, but I can remember sitting by the record player, and I can see it in my head, like the record turning, and I'm just so moved by the music. And so those things impact me. And this little church that I went to, it had that beauty. It was more contemplative and quiet, and that appealed to me. Um, and it was simpler somehow, and just felt like I was home.
And you never had, I guess, a stereotypical negative outlook on the Catholic Church. You were just
Oh,
prompted.
I did. Oh, no, I did for sure. But there's one other part of the story that I want to tell before we move on to that. So I will answer that question, but this is a really important part of the story. So here I am going to church, and I have two boys. One lives in Montreal, but one still lives with me. And at the time, I guess he was 14, maybe just turned 15. And I have been going to church for a little while. And Julian asked me one night, Mom, is this for real? Like, do you really believe in God? Because he said, I know you're going to church and I know you're watching that show that makes you cry every time, but do you really believe in God? And I said, I do. And he said, because about a year ago, I started praying for you, that God would come find you.
Wow.
Yeah. And the remarkable part of that story was not just that my son prayed for me, was that I didn't even know my son was a believer. I mean, he was going to Catholic schools mostly because of logistics, because his stepmom is Catholic. She was sending his little brothers and sister to Catholic school. He wanted to go to the same one, so Julian ended up in Catholic school. And I eventually asked him, like, how did this happen for you? And he said, I don't even know, like, I can't talk about it the way you do. It was just, I went to school and they taught me about it and it made sense to me. And he's had very close experiences with God and with Christ, very close. So anyway,
And you said he was 14,
yeah.
so that's grade 9 or grade 10. think it's grade 10. That's I just want to pause and comment on that because it's just the beauty of seeing that childlike, because Jesus talks about it, and I don't know, I've only watched the first season of The Chosen, so I don't know. I think one of the episodes Jesus is with the children and he plays with
Yes,
them,
yes,
and
yes.
he's
Yeah,
alone with them. So it's very beautiful to see how that purity and that vulnerability in a child is so open to be loved, because I think sometimes when things happen to us, and I would say, just hearing your life story, things that parents getting divorced and then going to university and hearing the answer to all my problems, I think that really prompts that culture for us to blame it on somebody else and then make
exactly.
ourselves a big victim of something that potentially, yes, is happening to us, but not why is it happening to us, for what is this happening to us, for what fruit can I do that I can maybe help somebody else, or maybe just work on myself so that I can improve myself and not. It's a lot of self-sabotage I've seen. And I've been to McMaster and seeing what other students think, the way that they're being perceived to not debate, not even to question things, just to
No,
take everything as a fact instead of, hey, is this a fact or is this an opinion that I'm absorbing? So going back to Julian, I think it's just so beautiful to see that is why a lot of what is going on, I want to say idealism or even
mhm,
idolatry towards the politics, or just trying to from this philosophy that it's the government or it's the men, that because of that our vulnerability and purity are taken away from us, because then we learn not to open our hearts. We learn to just think of ourselves up in a box and not think that nobody's going to love us and nobody's going to be there for us. But
yeah.
it's very beautiful to see that example and that he was praying for you. That's very impactful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so and I definitely had negative impressions of the Catholic faith, especially coming out of high school. I mean, the priests were great. Some of them were fine, but it was a troubled time at the church with the sex abuse scandals, and some of them were involved in that. And not that we knew about that, this is all in the future that we found out as students that a few of the priests who taught us were caught up in that unfortunate time. But I think there was just they weren't as connected to us. It felt yeah, one of them taught by fear, I swear. And now as an adult, I think, well, there's something to be said for that. I have the best grade in his class because I was terrified of doing poorly. But it felt really strict and constraining and not relevant to what I was experiencing because I didn't really know a lot about it. And so I wrote it off, and then when the whole sex abuse scandal broke open, and the church probably could have handled that in a better way from my perspective at that time. Yeah, I definitely had some negative. I mean, I've said all of this in confession since, right? Like I kind of mocked Christ's church and God, and thought the whole thing was a pile of hooey, and how wrong I was.
Mhm.
Probably could have helped me, and certainly it probably could have helped me. Yeah, it could have helped me be an even better mom, and in a lot of ways. So anyway, but I will say that one of the things that did kind of get me interested in Catholicism again was that prayer app Hallow. I don't know if you know
Mhm.
Hallow.
Yes, yes.
So I heard of
Where
I
did you see it or you heard about it?
Yeah, I heard about it on an episode of Jordan Peterson's podcast, and I kept hearing about it on that podcast. And I thought, oh, I'm going to download this and just see, because I was interested in praying, but I didn't really understand how to pray. I mean, I would talk to God, but I felt like, no, I want something more. So
Sure.
I downloaded Hallow, and Hallow really kind of changed the way I looked at the Catholic faith. It really did. And it
And
just,
this is after you Googled a nearby church, and then
yeah, it might have been before, like maybe I'm
oh,
getting
wow.
that mixed up, but I know, yeah, like Hallow was huge. I mean, and being with the evangelicals was great because I felt that, like, how can I put this? So going into the evangelical church was wonderful because I felt found by God, and that was just the most wonderful feeling. And that's kind of as far as I got there. But with the Catholic faith, I feel like I'm falling in love. Like every time I go deeper into the meaning and the connection and the truth of it, I fall in love every time. Like it's like, oh, there's so much here. It's so rich and it's so beautiful and it's so true. And I would love for everybody around me to be, as in love with it as I am. And Julian isn't even Catholic yet either. He's not fully initiated. I would love for him to do that, but that's his path to take. So
Are you guys in? Well, okay. So are you in RCIA?
I can't do RCIA yet because I have to get an annulment for my first marriage.
I see. Gotcha.
So that's the process I'm in now. So yeah, I'll pray for anybody, pray for me. I
Yes,
pray
God
for everybody,
willing.
pray for me.
Um,
Hopefully it won't take too long and then I can pursue that. But for now I go to I'm in. Like I'm in. Yeah.
that's true. So
Yeah.
then, I guess my follow-up question to that is so, and then I think what you're talking about happened so fast because
Mm.
you were, and then automatically you go to this evangelical church and you're like, oh, let me just look more into the Catholic faith, even though you already had negative perceptions on it, which I think to
Mm.
me it's a miracle because a lot of people grew up in evangelical and Christian and they never phantom to just Google it. Um, my follow-up question to that is it how then did you see the faulty teachings in the feminist movement? How did you come to that?
Yeah, that took a little longer because my husband can testify to this. He and we've known each other for longer, but we've been romantically involved for just over 3 years. And I can remember he and I did a walk by the lake one day and we were talking about domestic abuse. And um, Brock actually, yeah, he worked in a field that put him close to some situations, domestic situations that were pretty dark. And he just made a comment that, well, women can abuse men too. And I went into women's studies 101 mode. I was like, I'm having none of that. No way, and it was fierce. And he was like, okay, whoa. Like I was like one of these,
Yeah,
it's almost like that's what I've been doing for a
right.
long
Yeah,
time. I've been trained to do it, and that's what I've been doing, and shutting people down, and I won't hear any of it. It's all, men against women kind of thing. And it took me a long time to start realizing, and I think it was the way, like, I don't know if I can be super specific, but I realized that the traditional role of the woman in the family, the mother, the wife in the family, that traditional role that I had sort of, pushed against for so long really was the most important role to assume, because I looked at, gender ideology and this whole stuff with trans and the government trying to take away parental rights, and I realized, oh my gosh, we've walked into this trap. We've walked into this trap because feminism told us that those traditional roles are BS. They're social constructs. They don't mean anything, and they certainly don't make you happy. And so they have to be busted up, broken down, and women can just do whatever they want. And so it's like a slow process. And even on the abortion front, I think if you had asked me a year and a half ago, I might have still said, yeah, I'm pro-choice, but I hear more and more of the dark stuff that is happening in this world. And if anything, I think where Canada has gone with MAID has probably made me rethink the abortion issue more so than just talking about abortion. When I look at where MAID is going in Canada, it's like, oh my gosh, a life doesn't mean anything anymore. It's worth $1,300, just to kill someone instead of let them die naturally. And then, that sparked all these thoughts on, yeah, like there's value in life. So how do we then not place a value? And the abortion protests that happened right after Roe versus Wade,
Mhm.
even when I was pro-choice, Anna, like there was a time when, even if you were pro-choice, abortion was always a tragedy. It's not like it was never a tragedy. I might say, well, it is up to a woman to choose, but how sad. And she would agree, how sad. But we're at a place now, what I saw after the Roe versus Wade decision, where it's not a tragedy, it's a celebration. To me, that was just sick. And so with all of this stuff, you swear you're not going to slide down that slippery slope, but we've slidden down it so far that I can't not see the truth that we should have never been starting on that slope in the first place. And so in fighting, when you met me, I was battling the pride flag inside the schools, not even on the flagpole, just stickers and posters and displays inside the schools. And I think that's when I realized, yeah, like you can't bend the faith at all. You can't bend, because the minute you bend, all this stuff happens. God's word really is the truth, and it's what you have to stand by.
I would like to
So
say that, yeah, what you're saying with we walked right into it.
we
Uh,
did. We walked
it's
in.
why like, and recently I've been looking into Human Vitae. It's a document that Paul
Oh, I know. Yes.
Paul Paul the Sixth, I think, wrote, and it was the debate back in the day. I think it was the 60s, just when the sexual revolution was happening in France, that there was people, adamant Catholics, that really wanted the abortion pill to be justified and to be something that the Catholic Church would accept. And because Paul VI looked at what, I'm pretty sure it was people that were scientists, like he was looking at not just the religious aspect of it, but just the science, and seeing if this is something ethical and that families should forego. And he was very strong at what he was saying. He was like, no, this is a destruction of what you're saying, the truth of what God wants. If we're not to respect the human life that is going to be produced out of this, and then, not even just that, what is going to happen to morality and humanity when we say,
Mhm.
I can just use someone based on this wish or desire that I have, and then this pill is going to allow for this to happen. And even just I was looking on social media a month ago now, I guess it's less, but
Mm.
about a month ago now, when Trump was elected, a lot of people, or men, I should say, men, booked her, how do you say, her hysterectomies?
Hysterectomies.
Hysterectomies, yes, thank you for the correction. And I think it was 1,200% of increase just to book them. And it goes to show how, because abortion now is illegal, and now they look at Trump as an illegality of abortion in America. Now people are thinking, oh, now I can get an abortion. Now I'm just gonna sterilize myself because now I don't have that option. And it just goes to show that when Humanae Vitae, when the Pope was saying is that, yes, we're gonna basically come to that conclusion that we're gonna use the abortion pill, but if that doesn't work, then abortion is gonna increase. And he predicted that abortion was gonna increase, which to me is, yeah, walking right into something that we know is wrong, just like you said. And I think because I know that a lot of pro-choice people, they really struggle with defining when abortion should happen. So, should it happen before 20 weeks, before the zygote doesn't feel anything, even I think even 10 weeks, and after that, it's an embryo. But just even looking at the time span, that people struggle to understand that. And to me, it's very consoling. But obviously, we would want the pro-choice peoples to recognize it at the moment of conception, and then obviously um, respect somebody's death in a natural way. So my other question to you is, because I also met you, I think it was the second time I was messaging you. I'm like, hey, Colleen, would you like to be interested in praying for the unborn? And
Mm.
you very enthusiastically agreed. So I guess I wanted to ask you what your thought process was on that. Did you know about, and what I'm talking about to the viewers here, 40 Days for Life? It's a campaign that a group of people in different cities fast and pray for the end of abortion. So just what your perception was on that.
Yeah, I had no idea about 40 Days for Life. I mean, I'm very new to Catholicism, so I still don't know all the ins and outs, but I wasn't aware of 40 Days for Life. I think I saw it as exactly what you said. It would be a bold thing to do, to stand on the sidewalk and pray. And I've often driven past people protesting on the street, and um, yeah, it's a bold thing to do. And I guess I just thought, well, you know, put your it's time for us to stop being silent. It's generally people just stop being silent, do bold things, speak out. Look what's happening in the United Kingdom right now. I mean, you can be arrested if they think you're praying, it's crazy. So the fact that we can still stand on a street outside a building and pray is incredible, really, in this climate. I guess I just thought, yeah, what the heck? I'll do that. I'll do whatever I can to help. Um, and I was nervous, like when I drove up and Eva was standing out there on the sidewalk all by herself. I was so happy. I have to say, I was really nervous, and I did think to myself, oh, what have I signed up for? Why am I doing this? Like, I'm busy. What, like, I gotta drive all the way to Hamilton. I mean, I'm in
Colleen is
Waterloo.
very busy. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, but I just want like, and there's a saying, right, that says the busiest people are the ones that make time.
Oh, yeah, yeah, they get things done. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a good thing to be busy. But so I am just outside the city of Hamilton, so I thought, oh, I gotta drive all the way in and blah, blah, blah. But I was so happy I showed up when I saw Eva out on the sidewalk by herself. First of all, like I thought, oh, I'm really glad I came because I want to go and support her. Nobody should be standing by themselves. And then I was just like, it was so wonderful being out there. Um, a young woman from McMaster came up to us. She's Christian, and she just said, "I'm so happy to see you out here," and she was telling us how she's one of the few pro-life people on campus, and it was just such a wonderful experience. So I was very happy to do it, but I didn't do anything else after that because I am busy. But I thought, well, at least I participated, and I want to do I want to do as many of the Catholic things as I can just to find my way. What is the path that God wants me to take? And I think I'm still kind of casting around in different ways to figure that out right now.
Yeah, I just want to commend you for your courage, because it does take a lot. I remember the first time, it was not easy at all. And I think it's very similar to exposure therapy, very psychological, where you're exposed to something that is going to push you out of your limit, it's going to push you out of your bounds. And then once you do it, you kind of learn to grow that threshold. And I think maybe that's what you're trying to grow that threshold. And we, as humans that get very afraid easily, which we can talk about
Yeah.
near the end, what's if we don't push ourselves, then we're just gonna keep ourselves in that little box, right? That little box of
Mm-hmm.
self-sabotage. I'm fearful. I can make no difference, even if it's one person. That's not me. Let me just be with my friends and do more social events, do things that are more socially accepted. And the other thing I wanted to comment on was, yeah, 40 Days for Life basically happens twice a year. And just a little plug here for 40 Days for Life. And anybody, we have people from Toronto. I think Italy, people listen to this Radio Maria Via Real program. So yeah, if you find somewhere in your city when there's 40 Days for Life, it's happening in Lent. I think the dates are March 5th to April 13th.
Okay.
You can quote me wrong, but it's during Lent. So it's going to
Yeah.
happen again in 2025. It's coming up really soon. And yeah, so this is also towards all the Catholics that have heard about 40 Days for Life, but just still have that fear, that self-sabotage in the back of our heads that we kind of let that take over. And with that, the last thing that I wanted to talk about was, I know I want to say about a month ago, it might be less, you had hosted something for parents in Hamilton, and it was I want to say like a mini conference, a mini reunion talking about be not afraid. So
Yeah.
what, not what, but like how did you come to gather these parents, and then what was the reasoning behind having the title Be Not Afraid?
Well, last year we tried to battle the pride stuff head on. And we delegated to the school board, and I think that's where we first met, at my talk at the school board. And Simon and I had spent so much time putting that together, and it was a wonderful evening. All of you showed up. It was so moving. We prayed the Divine Mercy outside before going in. It was just, the whole thing was incredible. I guess there was a woman who kneeled down behind me, and she prayed the rosary the whole time I talked. It was like, I said to my friends after, it's like a Billy Graham tent in there. But at the end of the day, nothing happened, right? Nothing happened. So the school board, they're really not talking about it. Literally nothing is going to come of that, except for, like, in that regard, but the connections that were made, and the feeling that we can do something together was still very strong. And that is what came out of that evening. So Simon and I talked about it, and we both agreed we don't want to keep fighting this thing head on. What if instead we come up with a distraction? Like, here's secular ideology over here, shallow, nonsensical, empty, hollow stuff. What if we offer something that is rich and meaningful and true, and can actually help? And so we came up with the idea to have almost like a Catholic TED Talk, with music. And so the idea took shape, especially when the diocese released its Forward Together in Christ document. We met with Bishop Lobsinger, and he said, this would probably fit really nicely. And so we pitched it to our school council, who, they were a little bit resistant at first, because they couldn't visualize what it was. And of course, Simon and I had a very clear vision. But it
And
all came.
Simon is somebody you work with?
Oh, Simon is also on school council, sorry, and he's the parent who delegated with me to the school board in May about the pride stuff. But that evening we had 60, so just for contrast, 2 years ago, our school council did a parent information night on mental health. And we invited a secular author to come and speak to us about mental health. I think about 8 parents showed up. 8. It wasn't great. So for this thing, even though we were told, oh, you don't want to be too religious, like don't be too Catholic. Basically, that was the message. So we decided to title it Be Not Afraid, because there were so many meanings in that. And like I said in my introduction for the evening, over and over again, our kids and us are being told to fear the future and despair over the present. And that's it. That's what we get. So be not afraid is the message that is going to help us. But then also be not afraid to hold this evening and be Catholic and be proud of it and be passionate about our faith, and be not afraid to speak up and say, Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. And, I believe what I believe. And so there were so many aspects of Be Not Afraid. And it was really interesting because some people involved in the project were afraid of it, like just afraid of being too religious. But we had 60 people show up. So 8 2 years ago for our secular mental health night, and 60 people showed up for our Catholic night. And we had kids sing. I mean, you're pretty much guaranteed a good audience when you ask kids to sing. The kids choir was amazing. Nancy Bogsworth, their leader.
Very strategic.
Oh, it was like, she was so great. And then Father Merkley, I mean, what a breath of fresh air. He even rapped at the end. Like, it was such a good night. So what we would love to do is have another one in the spring, but also get other schools involved. And maybe we can, do like a series of events, keep it really tight in the community, but get the other schools excited about doing something like this, or it's like a little touring show that goes around to the different schools. Whatever it is, we would love to keep this going and have it grow, because I think what was obvious on that night is there's an appetite for this.
Yeah, I remember one of the mothers, she was saying, how do I answer questions that, kids are asking, but I don't know how to answer, just because
Yeah.
I don't want them to feel like maybe in a way be too religious or be too conservative. So, and I don't know what their school is allowing them to think. Because at the end of the day, I think even from the feminist movement and going to school, university, whether it's elementary school, high school, it's that key to being able to, in a way, educate. I would say educate, but right now we're not really educating. We're going with this ideology of these are what I think and this is what you should believe, versus no, these are the different beliefs that exist, and you get to choose whatever I would say. I would even like to say in this Catholic Radio Maria program, even if you're Catholic, Muslim, like you should be able to see the good and the bad in everything, and you shouldn't be fed these ideologies that, like we have seen in your life, didn't really give the best version of yourself.
No.
So to just end off, Colleen, can you let us know where people can, because I know you had mentioned in the background of before we started this show, if you have a podcast, if you have something where you write, I think you said like a blog, you can just let us know where to find you.
Yeah, you can find me. I write a humor column on Substack called Like Seriously with Colleen Stewart. So it's like, comma, seriously, question mark. And that's on Substack. And I write a piece and then I record it so you can listen to it or read it. And there's a really good one up right now about Aquafit, St. Anthony of Padua, and what should never go down the drain. So it's a good article. I just sent you a link to it, that you can link in the show notes if you want. But I'm also on LinkedIn. That's more my professional foray. My business is Perfect Pitch Consulting Group. But if people want to read what I'm writing and what I'm thinking, I'd probably say go to Substack first and find me there.
What's Perfect Pitch?
Oh, I teach. So it's so interesting because my career, I teach storytelling to corporate clients. So I show them the story structure. And as I teach about story, I'm actually echoing, of course, because the logos of the world is constructed by God, created by God. So when I teach the structure of story and the truth of storytelling to corporate communicators, I feel like I'm, without overtly doing it, I'm sort of preaching Christianity. That you don't get any treasure without the trials, and there's a reason that we suffer. You have to find the meaning. It contributes to a greater good, and your treasure is not to be hoarded. It's to be shared as an elixir for the world. I mean, this is Christianity, right? So this is everything that I teach to my corporate clients. I just don't tell them it's Christianity, but I do wear my cross to work, so they can figure it out.
Um,
Yeah.
Even just I guess when I was a teenager, I don't remember where I learned this. I guess university when I learned about that Narnia was the story of
Mm,
Christ, being
yes,
sacrificed on the table, the line, and I was just blown away. I could not believe it because you grow up seeing C.S. Lewis, the different storytelling, and it's very powerful.
yes,
Definitely hurts the heart, hits the heart.
it does. It does. Lord of the
Colleen.
Rings is the same way.
Oh
Tolkien.
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
We just watched. Yeah, we're in the middle of watching Lord of the Rings right now. We're about to do movie 3. But yeah, I mean, there's just so many. And if we can get back to that, if we can get back to the belief that that we are reaching for something transcendent, and that means struggle and perseverance and patience and faith and hope and charity, I really think we can heal the world. However amount of time it takes to get there, I don't know.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Colleen. It was beautiful just getting to know your story and very unexpected. The spirit obviously works in very mysterious ways. And that just goes to show that God is alive and via Ruah, through his spirit, he's here with us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Colleen, and God bless you.
Thank you, Anna. God bless you. Thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thank you.
You have been listening to the program Via Ruah, hosted by Anna Rivera here on Radio Maria Canada, a Catholic voice wherever you are.